Hello, the Pioneer viewers. I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you the developments regarding Russia-Ukraine war. The Russian army continues its attacks on the front line. In order for these attacks to continue, more ammunition and weapons are needed as well. The production of these weapons is based on a great economic power. Without this power, the production line will not work. The Russian army would be in a difficult situation on the front line. The Ukrainian armed forces are aware of this and carry out their operations accordingly. In recent days, the Ukrainian army has carried out an incredible operation. So, what are the developments regarding the latest blow to the Russian arms industry? Let's examine it together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to make an intense effort to bring you the developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the videos. Thank you for your support. Let's start if you are ready and the Pioneer reports. Ukrainian armed forces continue to carry out pinpoint operations. The Russian army, whose losses are increasing day by day, persistently continues its attempts to advance despite these losses, because this is what Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, wants the most. In order for the Russian leader to stay in power, he must be able to realize his claims about the war. While making these claims, Putin has forcibly conscripted hundreds of young Russians. At the same time, prisoners from Russian prisons have been forcibly sent to the front. The families of these people also harbor great anger against the Russian leader. In order for this anger to emerge, and the Russian leader must lose power. The first condition for the Russian leader to lose power is to Russian troops on the front line to suffer more casualties and to stop advancing. We have already shared with you many times in our previous reports that losses of the Russian troops are increasing, so there is only one condition left. The Russian troops must stop advancing. Already the Russian army was largely unable to make any progress. Only in Avdiivka there was a breakthrough after a long time, but here too the losses of the Ukrainian army amounted to 1, while the losses of the Russian army were 20. This 20-to-1 ratio of losses have been quite devastating for the Russian army. But will the losses be limited to this? Or what is the Ukrainian army doing to wear down the Russian army? The answer to this has emerged in recent days. As it is known, there are the Russian-made Kalashnikov weapons used in all the countries known as the Eastern Bloc. These weapons are used especially by Russia and armed groups in Iran and the Middle East, where the Russian influence continues. According to reports, the Kalashnikov brand no longer only produces rifles. Kalashnikov has also started producing unmanned aerial vehicles in order to balance the unmanned aerial vehicle power of the Russian army against the Ukrainian army. As it is known, the Ukrainian armed forces have made a breakthrough in the history of the warfare. The Ukrainian armed forces, which using unmanned aerial vehicles very effectively, have destroyed many control points, ammunition depots, and armored vehicles of the Russian army with their operations. The Russian army has never been able to catch up with the Ukrainian army in this regard. Therefore, Kalashnikov made to meet this need of the Russian army. But the Ukrainian army was even faster. One of the Kalashnikov factories producing unmanned aerial vehicles for the Russian army was located in Izhevsk. The Russian army's arms production had already been badly damaged by the sanctions. This was one of the last remaining factories. However, drones of the Ukrainian armed forces recently struck this factory. When the unmanned aerial vehicles of the Ukrainian armed forces hit the factory, a huge explosion occurred. The explosive materials in the factory also reacted with the heat and started to burn. A big fire broke out in the factory. Although the Russian fire brigades tried to intervene intensively, the fire could not be extinguished for a long time. Allegedly, saboteurs were also on duty here. It is claimed that flammable and explosive materials were previously placed at some points of the factory and that these were also blown up with the heat. According to local sources, there was a great panic in the region. Many Russian citizens suffocated due to the smoke that spread in the area and almost covered the city. In addition, Russian authorities allegedly intervened quite late. Therefore, it is also claimed that the damage here is more than expected. However, Russian official sources have still not made any statements on this issue. In such cases, we usually know that the outcome is, if the Russian official sources are silent about something, the allegations are usually true. Russian official sources use the weapons of silence to hide what is happening. But now that it has been recognized as a weapon, Russian citizens know the reason for this silence. Therefore, every critical event that takes place within the borders of the Russian Federation increases the anger of the Russian citizens against the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. The moves of Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, continues to cause discomfort among the Russian people. Allegedly, a mass action took place in the Russian soil again recently. This time, it was the families of the prisoners in the Russian prisons. According to the allegations, the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, is preparing for a new mobilization. We also think that the Putin administration, which is in intensive preparation to compensate for its losses in Avdiivka, is in such a preparation. Allegedly, the families of the Russian prisoners gathered recently to protest against this new mobilization. This action is reported to have taken place in the Bertyansk region of the Russian Federation. Our sources in Brodsk tell us that there has been massive media censorship of these protests. Since the Russian leadership is powerless to prevent any uprising against it, it is all the more important to keep it on the wraps. According to our sources, many protesters were detained during these demonstrations. It is also reported that many protesters were subjected to the violence by the Russian police. Our source interviewed one protester who said the following: "There were hundreds of prisoners' families here. The police attacked us. Prisoners are already living in inhuman conditions. They may be criminals, but they are human beings too. They want to send them to the army by force, and we don't want prisoners to go to the front. Politicians can go to the army if they want to. Hundreds of Russian soldiers died because of them. They want to send hundreds more to the front, but we will not allow it." So, what do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian armed forces will continue to carry out the strikes against the Russian military targets behind the front lines? Do you think that these attacks are successful? Or do you think that the Russian army will be able to fill its gaps? And what do you think about the protests of the Russian people? Tell us in the comments, because we read and we care about all of your comments.